Hello, my name is Michael, and welcome to the first, return episode of Wrestletainment. So I spelled out in my bio in regards to Wrestletainment that I am not so much a WWE fan, but I am a independent wrestling fan, a New Japan Pro Wrestling fan, a Progress Wrestling fan, a Japanese and European wrestling fan, basically. I don't watch a lot of WWE. I mainly only watch NXT and 205 Live. So I will leave discussions of the main roster in WWE to Sean, as that's more his forte. So I think right now the only thing we could really discuss is obviously New Japan's second biggest pay-per-view of the year, Dominion, that was running last night. And let's talk about the fact that last night Kenny Omega beat the final boss of professional wrestling in what could be possibly the greatest professional wrestling match of all time. Obviously, there was a lot of other stuff on the card to talk about. I wasn't a great fan of some of the undercard matches. Like, the whole card as it was great. The whole show was fantastic, but the top end of the show really weighed down the lower end of the show. It made the earlier matches seem sort of, I don't know how to put it. Like the junior heavyweight tag match was good. The tag match, the non-title tag matches were pretty decent, but the top three matches on the card: Jericho versus Naito, Hiromu versus Will Ospreay, and of course Omega versus Okada, as well as the Young Bucks versus Los Ingobernables de Japón for the tag titles. All four of them really sold the show for me. So I'll run over what I liked about all those matches and why I think small parts of them were significant in the grand scheme of things when you think about what New Japan is attempting to do right now. So a big thing to take into consideration when discussing this is that at the very top end of the show, before the show even started, New Japan introduced their new sort of president. Now he's a Westerner who's lived in Japan almost his entire life. I can't for the life of me think of his name offhand, sorry. But he has said that he wants to take New Japan to the next level. His history with promotional stuff from the industries he's worked in, like toys and stuff like that. He's definitely the right sort of person to take New Japan to the next level. And obviously New Japan is sort of at war, as it were, with WWE, but not so much the way that WWE is at war with New Japan. WWE are quite aggressively like signing talent that that New Japan and Ring of Honor and all that sort of stuff use. Sometimes not really doing so much with them, and Ring of Honor and New Japan are sort of doing their own thing in the background. There's like a state of mind where New Japan has their biggest pay-per-view of the year, Wrestle Kingdom, at the very start of January, on January 4th every year. And for the last couple of years, WWE have said that they want WWE's WrestleMania, which is their equivalent of it, to be bigger than Wrestle Kingdom, and they watch Wrestle Kingdom and they get ideas of what they can improve on and what they can do better than New Japan. And if you've seen the quality of Wrestle Kingdom for the last couple of years, you'll see that it's far superior to WrestleMania. The main events, especially of the New Japan shows, are a lot better than WrestleMania shows, just for quality, storylines, everything really. I mean, obviously I'm biased because I prefer them, but yeah. So when you take into consideration that sort of stuff, and New Japan are making sort of headway into what I suppose could be considered WWE's territory in like America. They've opened up a dojo in LA that they've got Shibata as the head trainer of, which is fantastic. It's a great use of ridiculously good talent who would be an absolute waste to let go to let not do anything now that he basically his career's over after the injuries he suffered at in that match against Okada a couple of years ago. And they've started doing the shows in Long Beach. There's the G1 special coming up just before the G1, and they already have all these agreements with other companies, Ring of Honor, CMLL, and Rev Pro. They have talent that wrestle all around the world in other companies. We've had Will Ospreay come to New Zealand multiple times. They have a big presence in Australia as well. Obviously, Mr. Juicy, Gino Gambino from MCW, officially inducted into the Bullet Club, wrestled at Wrestle Kingdom this year in the New Japan Rumble. Okada headlined one of their shows against Slex in November of last year, and it was just announced last night during Dominion that MCW's 100th show, MCW have a absolute monster called Jonah Rock. If you haven't seen him before, I highly recommend checking him out. He will be wrestling against Tetsuya Naito, he of Los Ingobernables, at the MCW show. So it's going to be a fantastic show. So yeah, New Japan are making headroads into being a company which is a legitimate contender for WWE. So in this pay-per-view that was on last night, a lot of Westerners, Gaijin, went over. So you had the Young Bucks went over Sonata and Evil, Los Ingobernables for the heavyweight titles, heavyweight tag titles, sorry. Now the Young Bucks have always been accused of being sort of spot monkeys in their matches, not having any psychology, but I think it's really underselling what the Young Bucks do. Last night, the match with LIJ, there was a huge story in it, in that the Young Bucks really do need one another. They're not really singles wrestlers. They're definitely a tag team. And that to get any further, they really do need one another. Nick hurt his leg on a super kick, hitting the ring post at the outside. And every time Matt would get one of the LIJ guys up for a finishing move, the Meltzer driver, and like that, Nick couldn't really do anything because his leg was injured. And it sort of continues the story of, and also continues the story from last year of Matt's back. He's having issues with his back. They lost a lot of matches through submission because Matt's back was bad. It got brought up in the match against the Golden Lovers earlier in the year. So their matches aren't just spot fests anymore. I mean, they obviously still do the super kicking everywhere and all the flips on the outside, but they're incorporating submission moves. They're incorporating rest holds. They're still using their fantastic tag maneuvers and stuff. They are possibly the best tag team in the world in any company, especially now that they've made the move from New Japan from junior heavyweights to heavyweight. I didn't think that they'd put the tag belts on them this soon, the heavyweight tag belts, but I mean, I would have thought they would have given LIJ a bit of a longer run with Sonata and Evil, because it was really giving them something to do. But we'll see where it goes. I had hoped that they'd win the tag belts, Landmarks win the tag belts towards the end of the year, and hold them for Wrestle Kingdom, and have if the show didn't go the way it went later in the night with Kenny, then I would have loved to have seen the G1 tag tournament won by the Golden Lovers or the Young Bucks, and then whoever the other team is challenge them, so that we get Golden Lovers versus Young Bucks again at Wrestle Kingdom for the tag belts, because it's a great story. The chemistry those four have, and the match they had in Long Beach at the start of the year proved that they can have fantastic matches with each other. So the next match I really enjoyed was the Junior Heavyweight Championship match between current champion Will Ospreay and Los Ingobernables Hiromu Takahashi. Now, Hiromu has just won the Best of Super Juniors tournament earlier in the month, and he really was kind of a dark horse to win. I think myself and a lot of people were expecting Taiji Ishimori to win, given that he was just brought back from Noah to be the new Bullet Club Junior, and he replaced Marty Scurll. He replaced, to be fair, he replaced Kenny Omega, because Kenny Omega started out as he was the Bullet Club Junior Heavyweight. And he was treated as such a star and a threat from the moment he showed up. And to have him in the final lose to Hiromu, who's sort of been on almost a redemptive arc for the last couple of months. He when he first debuted back after Excursion, he was treated as this giant, larger-than-life character, and he came in and he absolutely threatened Kushida, and he decimated him time after time. He beat him in about 3 minutes in one show in 5 moves, and it's almost unheard of, especially like considering that Kushida's like the ace of the junior heavyweight division. So to have him lose the way he did middle of last year to Kushida, and then he sort of lost his way for a bit. He wasn't really doing anything. He had a great tag team with Bushi, and they had a couple of shots at the junior heavyweight tag belts, and which were really good. I really did think they were going to win them. I thought that was going to be their place for a while, but he lost the belt, and his whole identity when he had the belts was that he was in love with the belt. The belt spoke to him. He's crazy, and it's fantastic. And then he lost the belt, and he found Daryl. And if anything speaks to the charisma that Hiromu has, it's that he got over a stuffed cat. And it was to the point where like the cat was part of matches. Like he was taking Meltzer drivers, and Farley destroyed him, and merch got made of him, and he has his own Facebook and Twitter accounts, and he got the software, got married, all that sort of stuff. So Hiromu, he really has become like the fan favorite. And if you go back and watch the finals of the Best of Super Juniors, which is one of the best matches of the year, hands down so far, Ishimori and Hiromu have such amazing chemistry, and it was a hell of a match. I really didn't think Hiromu was winning until the end, and so when he won and went to this match here, I did feel he was going to win. I'm glad he did. Ospreay has really carried the division for quite a while, but they had to put it on Hiromu. Hiromu is so ridiculously over with everyone. And he's like, you listen to the reaction from the crowd when he shows up and when he wins. When he won the Best of Super Juniors, the reaction from the crowd then. He wrestles with such reckless abandon, like he doesn't want to live. It's kind of like, I was talking to a friend about it, he wrestles like how Sabu used to wrestle, where he does something and then thinks about it and the repercussions of what he's done after he's done the move. He has just one of the most insane movesets of anyone, and everything he does carries such a sense of danger with it. And I'm really looking forward to seeing where he goes now with the belt. Him and Ospreay have amazing chemistry as well, and not just in ring chemistry. Like you watch promos of the two of them together, you look at their interactions on Twitter. They really do. I really feel like they'll have another match again shortly. Maybe like a Ospreay will ask for a rematch or something. But the one thing I'm hoping from this is that now that Hiromu's got the belt, we get more matches between Hiromu and his longtime feud rival, Dragon Lee. Dragon Lee of CMLL, in New Japan's Mexican affiliates. Dragon Lee wrestles the same sort of crazy, life-threatening style that Hiromu wrestles. And every time the two of them wrestle each other, they wrestle like they're legitimately trying to take like days off one another's lives. The matches are fast, they're hard-hitting, everything looks dangerous, everything looks like it's being hit with malice. I really hope that that's who challenges Hiromu for the belt sooner rather than later. He was one of Hiromu's first challenges when he won the belt the first time. And they had a really good match in the Best of Super Juniors. And Dragon Lee had a great showing in the Best of Super Juniors as well. He had a really, really good match against El Desperado, which I highly recommend you check out. So yeah, I'm really hoping that they can continue to bring life to the junior heavyweight division. I'd kind of like to see that sort of life being breathed into the tag division, junior tag division. I'm feeling quite sort of sad being dragged down. The Young Bucks leaving and going to the heavyweight divisions really it was a real loss for the junior tag division. The tag division now really only has the current champions, who are Suzuki-gun in El Desperado and Kanemaru, and Sho and Yo of Roppongi 3K. Then when they lost Roppongi Vice when Trent went heavyweight, and to be fair as well, when they lost Red Dragon, who you'd probably know is the Undisputed Era, Kyle O'Reilly and Bobby Fish, as well as losing part-timers like Ricochet and Evan Bourne. It really did. If you go back and you watch, I think it's Wrestle Kingdom 10, you watch the junior heavyweight tag match there, and you compare it to now, it's really lost a lot of its spark. So I'm hoping that they bring in maybe some part-timers from outside. They bring in some newer talent. They maybe bring back some people from Excursion, and we'll see where we go from there. The second main event was Chris Jericho versus the current Intercontinental Champion Tetsuya Naito. This is the match where the result surprised me the most. I didn't at all expect New Japan to put a belt on Jericho. I thought with his schedule with the band, his relationship with WWE, all that sort of stuff, that they wouldn't put a belt on him. But at the same time, I can definitely see why they did, especially that belt and off who they took it off. If you know anything about New Japan and you know anything about Naito, you know that Naito's relationship with the Intercontinental title is strenuous. It's not exactly a good relationship. When Naito initially won the belt off Tanahashi, he showed that he didn't really care about it. He said that he feels the belt isn't necessary, that it's kind of just like a consolation prize for the people who don't have the heavyweight title. And he throws it around, he leaves it behind. He at one point in time damaged it so bad that he actually physically broke the belt. And so it was interesting to see that he actually even went for the belt again when Minoru Suzuki had it. So when he won it again, I was kind of interested to see if it was like he was going to change his opinion of it, if he was going to maybe treat it with a bit more respect. But Naito is going to Naito, and he would still leave it behind. He didn't even want it. When he initially won the belt from Suzuki, he left in the ring and walked off, and the referee had to take it to him. So nothing's changed there. So it almost feels like him losing the belt isn't a huge loss to Naito, because he's actually just treating it the way he would normally treat it, and I don't think he would probably even care that he lost the belt. This match obviously was set up at New Year's Dash at the start of the year after Jericho lost the IWGP US title match against Kenny Omega. He said he was definitely going to be leaving Japan. He wasn't going to come back. He had been sparring with Naito a bit on Twitter, and then after Naito's match, he came to the crowd and he jumped Naito. And then a bit later in the year, Naito was walking back out the back after winning a match, and a fan in an LIJ hoodie and a Bushi mask jumped the barricade and battered the ever-loving daylights out of Naito, bloodied him up. He pulled the mask off, and lo and behold, it was Chris Jericho. This was a very Chris Jericho match. Chris Jericho in New Japan is very different than Chris Jericho in WWE. He wrestles in New Japan in a more frantic style. He wrestles very Attitude Era. Has a lot of weapons. You can tell he enjoys the freedom of being able to really be over the top and be like the big villain, which is really weird because in this match he was the heel, but he definitely had the crowd behind him. There were huge Y2J chants. Every time he'd do something that was like a real sort of dickish heel move, the crowd would really cheer for him. There was a couple of spots in this match that were really, really brutal. Naito took a DDT, I believe it was, onto a table, the announcer's table, really early in the match, and a few minutes later, you could see that he was busted up under the eye, and he'd actually burst some blood vessels in his eye, and the whites of his eyes had gone red. As the match progressed further on, he also, the commentators thought he was bleeding from his mouth, but he's actually bleeding from his ear. There was also a spot in this, which is one of the most brutal spots I've seen in a New Japan match for a long time, where Kenny was on the, Chris was on the top rope, and Naito went for, I think it was a Hurricanrana, and Chris grabbed him and dropped him from the top rope into a spike pile driver and then rolled it into the walls of Jericho. And in any other company, anywhere else in the world, that would have been the end of the match. But in New Japan match, the pile driver is really nothing unless it's hit by Minoru Suzuki after a sleeper hold. Jericho was never going to win with the Walls of Jericho on this because it's a Boston Crab and it's what the Young Lions hit as their finisher. So Jericho, being the sneaky heel, distracted the referee, kicked Naito in the balls and hit the code breaker, and we have a new IWGP Intercontinental Champion. It's actually a very smart move on behalf of New Japan if you want to expand into the West more. Especially with these US shows coming up, putting the belt on somebody as recognized as Chris Jericho, who winning this is officially, between two companies, a 10-time Intercontinental Champion. He's also the first man to win both the WWE and the IWGP Intercontinental Championships. Putting the belt on someone like Jericho definitely it'll help bring a lot more eyes onto New Japan. When Jericho first showed up in New Japan to challenge Kenny Omega last year, it was the most talked about story in wrestling. It got so many people to watch Wrestle Kingdom, got so many eyes onto New Japan. So they definitely know what they're doing. I was very surprised to begin with, but the more I thought about it, the more it made sense. After the match, Jericho continued to beat down Naito, and Evil came out to make the save. So I do wonder if this means that we get a singles push for Evil maybe, now that he's dropped the tag belts. I'd be definitely okay with Evil versus Jericho. Their styles are very similar. Evil was the way he wrestles is it's almost a very Western style wrestling. He's he uses a lot of weapon shots. He's very strength based. And I'll be definitely keen to see Evil win the IWGP Intercontinental title from him. I think it would be a big push for Evil. It would be a big rub for him. And I do wonder though if that's the case, where that puts Sonata, because they're a great tag team, and Sonata is a fantastic wrestler, and I'd hate to see him sort of forgotten about. And then we came to the main event, which was the no time limits, best 2 out of 3 falls, Okada versus Omega for the IWGP Heavyweight title. And the more I thought about this, the more I realized this was always going to end the way it was going to end. Okada, he is the golden boy of New Japan, and he's really brought New Japan into a new standing in the world of wrestling. He's carried this company for so long, and he's never been in contendership for any other title besides the heavyweight title ever. His entire like character arc is based around this belt. He's held it for a record number of days. He beat Hiroshi Tanahashi's record for most successful title defenses, and he's beaten a who's who of professional wrestling. And really, Keeney was the only blemish on his record, and it made sense that this was going to be the end of that story. Kenny has come from the light heavyweight champion, junior champion, a couple of Wrestle Kingdoms ago, to being this super over wrestler. He really is the Gaijin face of New Japan. He's the Western face of New Japan. He's been on this. If you watch Being the Elite, which you obviously should, it's fantastic. It's the best wrestling show that's not wrestling, and everything that does serves a purpose in the greater scheme of things. When it comes to matches, it comes to feuds, and there was so much about this match that was built up from stories of Being the Elite. The Young Bucks weren't in Kenny's corner. Ibushi was in his corner instead. He'd found Ibushi again. There was he'd left the Bullet Club. There was a fantastic video before the match of him talking to Ibushi, and Ibushi said to him, was it worth it? What did this cost you? The two of them being together. And it showed Kenny on the side of darkness in the black and Ibushi on the side of light. And Kenny moved into the light, and he says, it cost me everything. It basically implied that Kenny had left the Bullet Club, which is really weird because after the match, when he won the belt, they said that he was representing the Bullet Club, so I'm not sure what's going on there. It feels like he's still part of it, and then sometimes he's not. Eventually, they'll probably explain it. Being the Elite that came out today sort of furthered that. I'll get to that eventually. And this match it took bits and pieces from all 3 of their previous matches and expanded on it. Each fall was very different. The story of the match has always been that Kenny, the moment Kenny hits the one-winged angel on anyone, the match is over. I don't think anyone's ever kicked out of the one-winged angel. If anyone knows otherwise, please let me know. I think it could be the most protected move in professional wrestling right now. But whereas the Rainmaker, Okada has to hit 5 or 6 of them sometimes in a match to win the match. The first fall went to Okada, and he was almost sort of toying with Kenny for until the first fall. The feeling out process from their very first match was sort of there again, and then it sort of ramped up. Lots of really hard strikes, and Okada was sort of being a bit arrogant. He ended up getting the pin over Kenny with just a traditional sort of roll-up pin, and it was sort of a slap in the face to Kenny. If you look at his reactions to it, it was sort of showing that he didn't respect him. If you've been following their progress on Instagram, the training for the matches and stuff, Kenny had been training for this match really hard. He looked in phenomenal shape. And on the other hand, Okada was training for this match by going fishing every day and posting, hey, look at this fish I caught. And it sort of goes to show the two ways in which each competitor in the match was taking things. Like Okada was sort of, you could see it in his demeanor and everything. He takes himself that he is the best wrestler in the world. I mean, he is, and I'm quite happy to debate that. But he had an air of overconfidence to himself, and he has that. And you go back and you watch his defenses against all the people he's previously defended the belt against, especially against Shibata. He gets very confident, and he feels that he's better than everyone. He's got a huge air of superiority to him. Whereas Kenny always feels like the underdog in a match like this. So seeing him in the next fall, after that, he really stepped up the pace. There's a spot where he almost looked like he was going to hit a dragon suplex from the ring apron through a table, which was on the outside. It didn't work. He did, however, hit a double stomp, very Finn Balor-esque double stomp, onto the table on top of Okada on the outside. And then the V-triggers really stepped up. Whenever Kenny hits a V-trigger, there is a sound that rings through the arena, and it really brings the pain that obviously the opponent feels. It really helps sell the pain. He's legitimately knocked people out with it. He knocked out Hangman Page in their match earlier in the year. He knocked out Evil at the end of their G1 match last year with a V-trigger. But yeah, so the pace really stepped up with this. And then there was a sequence when Kenny won the G1 a couple of years ago where Kenny his character is based on Mega Man, and a big part of Mega Man is when you defeat a boss, you get their moves. Kenny has a sort of thing where he's like a Mega Man bad guy. Where he started using the V trigger after he won the Intercontinental title that was previously held by Shinsuke, and he started using the V trigger as it was very similar to the old Bomaye knee, which is different than what Shinsuke uses now, because obviously you can't use the Bomaye in WWE. So he adapted the V trigger from the Bomaye. And he hit a Styles Clash, and when he hit the Styles Clash, the entire arena absolutely erupted. There was a more deafening chant for AJ Styles after he hit that than I've ever heard in any WWE arena while AJ Styles has been wrestling. Eventually, Kenny hit a One-Winged Angel and got the second fall. They have a brief 2-minute interval between falls, and after that, the moment the third round started, Kenny really just went to town. There was a couple of moments where Okada looked like he'd win it again. He had a Rainmaker on Omega, but was too tired to capitalize on it. And then there was a moment where Kenny said to, he had Okada knocked out in the corner. He said to Ibushi, "Hey, look, I'm going to hit your finisher. I'm going to win this with your move." And went for the Phoenix Splash and missed. And Ibushi on the outside really helped sell this match. The Young Bucks, when they would corner Kenny, were really animated, and they were really like, "You're the best. You can do this. You can do this." But Ibushi, on the other hand, when he was on the outside and he was when this match he was cornering Kenny, he was selling real emotion. He was selling that he was really, really worried for Kenny, and every time something would happen, and they'd show him he was really upset and he was really worried, and that really did help. There was a sequence right at the very end of the match. Okada went for, he went for a drop kick and missed it. Kenny hit a fantastic counter into a one-winged angel. And then he hit another couple of V-triggers and he picked Okada up. He hit one more one-winged angel and pinned him in the center of the ring. 1, 2, 3. And we finally, after a year and a half, almost 2 years, have a new IWGP heavyweight champion in Kenny Omega. And the reaction was absolutely thunderous. The crowd were very much behind Omega in this whole match. I don't feel that people were. I mean, there's always been a lot of criticism with Okada holding the belt this long, and I think a lot of people were ready for Okada to drop the belt. But the fact that it was now, after he'd beaten a who's who of professional wrestling, he had finally closed the book on the chapter of a story with Tanahashi, and now he's passed the belt on to Kenny, and Kenny's story can begin. And after the match, the Young Bucks came down and celebrated. Kenny finally, obviously, forgave the Young Bucks, and they embraced. Cody came out as well, and if you've watched Being the Elite this week, you'll understand that there was a lot of significance behind that. Obviously, there's definitely unfinished business there. I imagine there'll be a Kenny versus Cody match for the title very soon. Could also be a match involving the NWA title if Cody wins it at All In. And it was a very big emotional payoff to 2.5 years of storytelling. And if you go online on Twitter and everything, people respond to it. Everyone's saying, "I'm not crying, you're crying." But it was that moment there, the Kenny finally reaching the top of the mountain. It was huge. I mean, I had been at a Maniacs United show last night. It's fantastic, by the way. I'll just talk. It was an absolutely fantastic show. Definitely go see a Maniacs show. They were great. But we were driving home from Auckland when the main event was on, and we put the main event on a cell phone while we were driving back. And the moment that the 3 count was counted and Omega won, all of us in the car, we screamed in absolute joy, and we were so happy because this is the story of Omega. We're going from the super heel who betrayed AJ Styles when he moved from junior heavyweight to heavyweight and took over the Bullet Club, to proving himself and winning the Intercontinental title, and then proving himself again and winning the G1 and challenging Okada at the main event of Wrestle Kingdom, and then slowly building himself up. And after each loss, he lost the first match, and then he came back after and challenged at Dominion last year and didn't win there, and then because it ended up going to a time limit draw. And then he finally got his win over Okada in the G1, a weakened Okada. Okada is, he's always sort of felt that he was superior to Kenny, and he finally proved that he could beat Okada at his best, not just once but twice. So it's been a hell of a journey, and there's so many possibilities and directions that New Japan can go from here. I mean, if you even think, does Kenny hold the belt until Wrestle Kingdom this next year? If he does, who wins the G1 to challenge him? Will it be Okada on a redemption story? Will it be Ibushi and we'll get a clash of the Golden Lovers? Will it be Naito again? And will we get Okada versus Naito, who have had 2 fantastic matches at the G1s over the last 2 years? And to be fair, Naito is Kenny's blemish, the same way that Kenny was Okada's blemish. They're both at 1 apiece. I'd be definitely okay with that. Their matches are both the matches they've had in the G1 are absolutely spectacular, and they have great chemistry. Or does Kenny lose the title between now and Wrestle Kingdom? You know, there's a lot of ways that this could go, and the huge advantage that they have with this is the fact that they can tell the story through being the elite, and through stuff like that, we get so much more engaged. We get so much more of a feeling as to who these characters are, why they matter, why person X is angry at person Y, why person Y would betray person Z. So, I mean, I'm really looking forward to the future of New Japan and this huge expansion they're making. The shows in America are going to be great. I really hope that we get some of the matches we were supposed to get the last Long Beach show. Rey Mysterio finally debuted in New Japan last night, and sort of the angry kids in the Bullet Club America versus the sort of old school New Japan dads with Liger and Tanahashi and Rey Mysterio making his debut, as I said. I hope we still do get that Liger versus Rey Mysterio match that we were supposed to get. And I hope that New Japan continues to expand. I'd love another New Japan show in New Zealand. So, you know, Sakura Events, Fale, you know, feel free to help us out here. So yeah, New Japan is going from strength to strength, and where it goes from here is anyone's guess, but I'm definitely 100% along for the ride. And so I'll drop a lot, I'll just do a little bit of quickie news from sort of everywhere else in wrestling, and I'll wrap it up. In Progress Wrestling, we've got a show tomorrow where we've got Tigo Cooper and Travis Banks representing New Zealand against Walter and Jack Sexsmith in a tag match. Obviously, Walter and TK Cooper and Travis Banks have definitely unfinished business. Travis sort of walked out on his match with Walter and got counted out the other day. And I'll be interested to see if Walter is continuing to challenge for the belts after he decided to vacate the Atlas Championship for another shot at the heavyweight title. And Jack Sexsmith obviously was Travis's last challenger, and he really did sort of get cheated as well. The new women's champion, Progress Women's Champion, Ginny, is challenging, has a challenger, and I put an open challenge out for women from anywhere in the world to challenge her. And former Progress and current NXT wrestler Nixon Yule, who this morning W announced is now officially called Tegan Knox, I believe it is. They've got a match. So WWE and Progress obviously have a working relationship. That's why you see a lot of Progress talent in the UK tournament and stuff like that. But apparently earlier today, WWE are running NXT and UK championship matches and stuff at Download Festival happening in the UK. Apparently during their 6-woman tag match today, Tegan, whatever she is, apparently she's injured herself. So don't know how serious it is. She was taken to the back with medics. So I don't know what that means for the women's title match. But Progress persevere irrespective as to what happened. It was late last year. They had a show where it was snowed out and 2/3 of the talent couldn't make it to the show. And on the day of the show, Jim and Glenn and John booked an entire show and found wrestlers that were local in a day and put a show on. It was still a great show. So I don't have any worries that Progress will not be able to put on a great show, because they always do. In sort of Progress news, former women's champion Toni Storm lost her last Stardom belt last night. So she's officially lost basically all of the women's titles she had, besides she still has the WXW championship. She's obviously on a WWE UK deal apparently, and WWE have announced that they're going ahead with the UK brand. Fantastic legend Johnny Saint has been announced as the general manager. So what that means, if there's going to be shows, if that means they'll still be allowed to wrestle independent shows and stuff, I'm not too sure, so we'll see. Also announced sort of today is that WWE's signed a few more women to the WWE UK deals. Previously, last week, they signed Marty Skill's girlfriend and possibly the best female technical wrestler right now, Gianna Perazzo. They've also apparently signed Isla Dawn, who's a Scottish wrestler. She's very, very, very good wrestler. She's also Mrs. Aleister Black. They've signed her. It sounds like Killer Kelly possibly is also signed from WXW. And earlier today, it sounds like they've signed a few more talents. So whether or not these are people for the UK division, or if they're signing people en masse for the next Mae Young Classic like they did last year, I guess we'll see. But it's an interesting thought whether or not this is going to be sort of to the detriment of the independent scene, if the WWE is just doing what WWE does and just signing independent talent so they can't wrestle anywhere else. Obviously, a big part of them signing all these people from the UK is that World of Sport and ITV are looking at starting up again, and by doing this, they're preventing these people from going to wrestle for their opposition, which is fair enough. And the last bit of news I will go over is in Mexico. We may have one of my dream matches coming up. Dragon Lee and Pentagon Jr., or Penta El Zero Miedo, whatever he's called now, I'm not sure what the legal situation is with his name, had a backstage interaction where Pentagon bumped into Dragon Lee and sort of verbally unloaded on him about his brother, Rush, who's the leader of the original incarnation of Los Ingobernables, and sort of said, I'm going to F your brother up, I'm going to F you up, F your mother. And Dragon Lee obviously retaliated and said, I can kill you. So if this leads to a match between the two of them, if you can find a way to see it, see it. Dragon Lee, as I said, is a spectacular wrestler. Pentagon is one of the best wrestlers in the world outside of WWE or anywhere else in the world. I'm not sure what the situation is with him and Lucha Underground, because they have obviously had big contract disputes in regards to AAA, which I forgot to mention as well. AAA, one of the other bigger Mexican promotions, is apparently running a show at Madison Square Garden, which will be interesting. AAA ran a show earlier in the year, Triple Mania, and it was kind of what would happen if Botchamania was a pay-per-view. It was bad, and kind of doesn't get any better when you find out that AAA put their super heavyweight championship on Jeff Jarrett a few weeks ago. So yeah, big things are coming in the independent scene. I'm really looking forward to seeing what happens with New Japan. Progress are building to their show at Wembley. Everything's looking spectacular. Will Travis hold the belt until then? Will Travis drop the belt to someone like Walter? Who will Zack Sabre Jr., the winner of the Super Strong Style 16 tournament, who will he meet in the main event? Will it be a three-way match between Travis and Walter and Zack? Who knows? So looking forward to seeing where that goes. And as I mentioned, I'm looking forward to seeing what happens with Dragon Lee and Pentagon Jr. I'm not sure if there will something be happening, but I really hope there is. Yeah, other than that, it's not much else to say. I guess I'll be back in a couple of weeks when there's a bit more independent wrestling news to talk about. So until then, it's been great talking to you, and I'll see you all again soon.